What's up guys, it's Pally or Yes here. Today I'm covering how you can use actions to improve your workflow in Adobe Illustrator. So before we cover how you can use actions to improve your workflow, we should actually first discuss what actions are, and they are macros which help you complete a set of actions in one singular shortcut. Actions are in most, if not all, Adobe programs at this point, and designers rarely use them or even know about it when I mention it to them in real life. I'm not sure if it looks a little too complicated to learn for them, or if they'd much rather just do the same tedious process over and over again. As soon as I notice I'm doing the same kind of thing over and over again in Illustrator, maybe 3 or 5 times, I'll definitely just set up an action just so I don't have to keep on pressing all of those buttons or moving all of these objects to the same place or adding the same sort of stroke. I can do it all with actions very easily. So in this video, I'll cover how you can set up actions for your own workflow and some examples that I use in mine. So if you can't utilize the same actions that I use, maybe you can think of ones on your own that might be useful to you. One thing I've learned about being a freelance graphic designer is that you want to work smarter and not harder. So let's hop into Illustrator and get started. Once we're on Illustrator, let's create a new document, 1080 by 1080 on RGB color, and hit create. Now just so you know what I'm using exactly, I'm on the Essentials workspace, just to make sure everyone can use the same sort of ideas. And the first thing I want to do to get started is hit the Actions window. And you'll see this pops up here. I'm just going to delete the ones I currently have. So now we can see we have a default actions folder, and you can see all of these little ones they have created as a default. Rotate 90 clockwise might be useful. Save for web, or opacity 60 they think you might find useful. So let's just create a rectangle by pressing M, and then creating it right here. And I'm just going to make it black with no stroke. So just like that. And now what I'm going to do is select this opacity 60 here, and we're gonna hit play on it. Now you can see that it made this square 60 opacity. I'm just gonna hit Control Z. Now this specific action might not be very useful to you, but it does save a little bit of time. Same with this rotate 90 clockwise. We can just hit play on this one. You might not notice much of a difference, but it did rotate 90 degrees. And if you were to do this manually, you'd have to right click, go to transform, rotate, and then select 90 degrees. So now that you have an understanding of actions, let's create our own. So to do this, I'm going to leave the default actions folder. I'm going to make a new folder, and let's just call it tutorial. And once I have this new folder, I'm just going to make sure I have it selected, and I'm going to hit create a new action. And I'm just going to call it reflect vertically. And it'll be in the set tutorial. This is just your folder essentially. Now we're just going to set it to a function key so we don't have to hit that play button on the action panel every time we want to use the function. So for this one, I'm just going to select F1. You can have multiple actions on one function key by just having variables in the shift and command, or shift and command at the same time. And then you can also color code your actions. I normally don't do this, but I mean, if you want to use the reflects as red, you can do that. For this one, I would personally just set F1 to reflect vertically and hit record. Now once you hit record, anything you do after it will be set in this new action. So just because you named it reflect vertically, it doesn't really know what that means. That's just for you. So now you have to record your actions here. And now what I'm going to do is right click, go to transform, go to reflect, and then I'm going to reflect it on the vertical axis and hit OK. Now you probably didn't really notice anything, but what I'm going to do is hit this stop playing, because that's all we want to do in this reflect vertically action. So let's add some text, and let's put George, the red jacket man. And let's go back to our selection. Ooh. There we go. Select it here, make it bigger. Let's say we want George, the red jacket man, to flip around just like this and see how it looks when it's backwards. So instead of going right click, transform, reflect, vertical, what we can do is just hit the FN on your keyboard if you're using Mac, or if you're just using Windows, just hit F1. If you're using Mac, you want to hit FN and F1. Now you can see it backwards just like this. And now if you want to flip it backwards the other way, you can also just hit F1 again, of course. In actions, you can do a bunch of things just in one action alone. So let's say we wanted to reflect this vertically, reflect it horizontally, and then change the opacity to 50. So we can do that in our tutorial, make a new action. So let's call it reflect vertical and horizontal / opacity 50. Don't really need all those caps there. I don't know why I'm yelling. There we go. So let's set the function key as F2 this time, and let's set shift as well. And now let's make this red, since the reds are going to be our reflectors. And now let's hit record. So the first thing we want to do is go to transform, just like this, reflect, vertical, right click again, transform, reflect, horizontal, okay, and then opacity 50. And now let's hit stop. And then if we didn't actually want to do this to this object, we can just hit Command Z, Command Z, Command Z, and that doesn't actually delete the action, it just deletes the moves on this specific layer. So now that we have reflect vertically and horizontally and opacity 50, we can test this out by hitting F2 on our keyboard, or FN and F2 if you're using Mac. Okay, I was very confused for a second because I was hitting FN and F2 and I was wondering why it was disappearing, but we have to hit FN and Shift and F2, and it'll do the same thing on this one, and there we go. Now let's say we want to alter this shortcut, and let's say we don't like the reflect horizontally on it. What you can do is hit the reflect horizontal one, which was the second one I believe, and just hit the little garbage can here. And this will delete the selection. So now it'll only reflect vertically and change the opacity. Okay, so now we can try this by hitting Shift and F2. And there we go. As you can see, it didn't reflect it horizontally because it would have been like this or like this, and it only did it this way. So that should give you a good idea on how you can use actions in your workflow, how you can set them up on your own, how you can edit them, and how you can rename them and organize them however you'd like. Personally, I like to keep similar actions on the same function key, so if I have one that's reflecting horizontally and then another one that's reflecting vertically, I keep them normally on just F1 and then just switch between Shift and Command. So now I'm just going to display a few of the actions for shortcuts I have. The main one is the rotation. I have F2, which is just 45 degrees, and then I also have Shift and F2, which is 90 degrees, as you can see here. Then I have Command and F2, which is 180 degrees. And then I also have Shift and Command, which is 30 degrees. And I don't have 60 degrees set up just because I feel like I use 45 and 90 a lot more than I use 30 and 60. So I just set up 30 as it's the base that I can just keep on clicking to get 60 or 90 or 180 or any variation of 30 degrees, of course. The next main one I use is adding a stroke of 4.5 points, which is half a square on the Illustrator grid here. So to display this, I'm just going to create a little line here with the rectangle tool. And let's say we have no stroke on here. I want a 4.5 stroke around this whole thing. I can easily just go F3. And as you can see, it doesn't look like it's about half, it looks like it's about quarter, and that's because it's on the center. So if you want half, you just set it to the outside, and that's half a square right there. I normally have a few others set up for like 9 points and 18 points, but I just had to remake these ones really quickly as I deleted them all for this video. But those are the primary actions I use in my day-to-day workflow. And I think that's all I had planned for this video, so please let me know in the comments if you found any of these actions useful or cool, or if you had any useful actions that you might have thought of in this video that you think could help others out. Also, really quickly before this video ends, I said in my using grids to create logo designs video that I would be giving away one of the booklets with the grid paper, the two different types of grids, the square grid and the isometric grid. I said I'd be giving away one of those booklets, and the winner would be announced in the video after the next video after that one, if that makes sense. So it would be announced in this video. I've reached out to him through Twitter to get his address to send over the booklet. I also noticed we hit 550 subscribers. The support has been unreal recently and I really do appreciate it. I hope you guys have a great day and peace out.